Welcome back to Math Mini Lessons. I'm Sarah, and today we're going to talk about zero pairs. We're going to figure out how to know if a situation will result in a zero pair. That means creating them and finding the absolute value of rational numbers. That's our objective for today. And our success criteria. This means demonstrating that we can use a number line or any visual to just model a situation, creating an expression, and recognizing opposites that make zero pairs. Let's jump into today's lesson. I want to make sure we're all using the same vocab, so in some of the problems I'm going to model today, you're going to hear me use some terms. I want to make sure it is very, very clear what they are. So the first word I like to use a lot is initial value, and by initial I just mean this is wherever we're starting in a problem, in whatever situation. So for example, if I have 5 plus 6 equals 11, where I start from is 5 in the beginning of the problem, and my final amount, usually we think of it as what it equals, is the equal the end of the problem. That's my final amount. But something happens to it, and that's where I call it a change, and I use a delta symbol, Greek symbol. It just means change, like what happens to my starting amount. And you're going to see me do this with number lines where I'm going to have values, and I'm going to really try to identify where are we starting in the problem. In this case, we're starting here at 5. There's my start. Something happens. In this case, I'm adding 6, and I ended at 11. So we can see the start, the finish, and the change. The second vocab word you're going to hear a lot is absolute value, and that just means the distance of any rational number from 0 on that number line. So how far is it from 0? So even if I gave you the number 936, if I want the absolute value, and you're going to see a symbol, it's going to be in these two long lines. That means I want to know how far is that number from 0. So all you can think about is, if you put this on a number line, what is this distance? And if I wanted to get to 0, I would, well, it's 936 away from 0. So that is its absolute value, 936. If it's a negative number, and we're going to talk a lot about negative numbers in our lesson today, it's the same thing. We still just want to know how far is it from 0. So if I have negative 83, and again, I'm going to put it in these symbols, all I want to know is how far is that number from 0. So in this case, it's to the left. Here's negative 83. I'm still trying to figure out how big that distance is, and you're going to notice it's 83. So I just want you to think, you're going to see a quick pattern here. You're going to notice that the digits are the same, like 83, negative 83 and 83. You're going to see that they're the same. It's the same number, it's just the opposite. It's always a positive because we're talking about distance, and distance can't be negative. So how far is negative 83? It's 83. How far is 936? 936 from 0. So we're going to talk about those things. And the last thing we're going to notice are opposites, and those are just two numbers that make 0. The easiest ones I could think of are positive 1 and negative 1. And if you were to put them together, if you add them together, you get a 0 pair. So that's just, if I were to put them together, I get an ultimate value of 0. But opposites are just two numbers. They're both the same distance from 0. They're both 1 away from 0. So if I have 59 and negative 59, and I add these two numbers up, I'm also going to get 0. They're both exactly the same distance from 0. They're just on opposite ends of the 0. That's all it means. Same distance, opposite ends. But when I add them together, they do form a 0 pair because they will have a value of 0. And with that, we're going to jump into our first model. Let's jump into our model. We have 3 situations here, and we're going to try and represent each situation and identify if they create a 0 pair. So let me just make a space for all 3 so we actually have them. And each one, I'm going to use a number line to help me with the representation. All right, so in the first one, we have a temperature decreasing from 10 to negative 10 degrees. So I'm going to think about where it starts. It's going to start at 10, and it's going to go from 10 all the way
to negative 10. So how much did it actually change? If this is kind of tough, you could always just think of it using the zero mark, your absolute value. I know that it goes from here to here is 10 plus another 10. So it's actually a change of 20. That's going to be important. So it goes down 20. So let's go with the start, which is 10 plus minus 20. And automatically looking at it, they're not opposites. I know it's not going to make a zero pair. And I know I end at 10. That's my change. So not the first one. And the second one, I have the temperature decreasing 10 degrees from negative 10. So that's my start. So I'm starting at negative 10. And my change is the decrease. It's going down 10 degrees, decreasing. So that means I'm going to end at negative 20. How do I know that's not zero? Because I'm decreasing, meaning I'm going towards the lower to the left. So again, here's my start over here at negative 10. And I added another negative 10. And they both have 10s, but they're not opposites. They're both negative, and that means I do not have a zero pair again. I get to negative 20. And let's look at the last one. I have a firecracker rising 50 feet from 50 feet below zero. So that means I'm starting at negative 50. And it's rising, meaning it's going higher. So it's going up 50. So those are opposites to each other. That means I am going to land at zero. So negative 50 plus 50. That is a zero pair. Take 30 seconds and write this down, all models. And let's go to the next one. And this is a simple comparison. I want to know which one has more. So let's look at a number line again. I notice both Paul and Maria have a negative balance. Paul has negative $75 in the account. Maria has negative 17. So I'm going to put my zero down. Paul has a larger absolute value, meaning I know he's farther away. And Maria has negative 17. Again, these are not precise. Just creating a model. But looking here, so which one has more? Now, funny, they both have no money. They both owe money. But I can definitely say that Maria is closer to the zero. If she just added $17, she would get to zero. But it would take Paul adding $75. Like, that's what he would need to get to zero. He would need a lot more money. The other thing you also know is that my numbers are going in ascending order, meaning they get bigger in this direction. So if I was looking at making a symbol, I know that everything to the left is smaller than to the right. So here we have it. Maria has more money in her account than Paul, even though she has negative $17. Take 30 seconds and jot this down in your notes, and we'll go right into guided practice next.